Hello, it's Big Cheds. I'm back with another chapter of My Battles with Cancer, a patient and caregiver's candid memoir. I was a cancer patient and a caregiver for my mother, and I wrote this book as a way for myself to understand my own experience, but also to help other people. I published it in 2020. I republished it last year, and the audiobook just came out. And now I'm doing the whole book for free. I want it to be available to everybody. So I'm reading it one chapter at a time on YouTube, which is Cheds Trading. I'm of course Big Cheds on Twitter. I've also published Trading Quotes and Trading Wisdom. That's available on Amazon. So what we're doing now is last chapter was preparing for chemotherapy again. So mom was getting ready to start her new chemotherapy session, and here we are with the new chapter. Let's get it started already. 3 days before mom was set to start this new chemotherapy regimen, we met up for my little cousin's second birthday party at a nearby park. It was nice to touch base with mom and to get a sense of how she had been holding up. I also was interested in checking out her port, as I had yet to see one in person. Mom seemed to be in good spirits, although I could still sense a good deal of fear and apprehension beneath the surface. We hugged ever so carefully, as Mom still had some soreness from the port incision a few inches below the right collarbone. One of her best friends was there as well, and I had not seen her in many months, so it was nice to catch up with her. This friend was just astonished and kept saying that she could not believe how good I looked. By now, my hair had grown back and my skin had a slight tan. And with these improvements in my health, I was feeling and looking more and more like a normal guy. Her feedback reminded me of just how far I had come from being a pale, bald, weak, and fragile patient. It was also nice to see Mom recovering as quickly as she had been from the surgery, and I hoped to encourage her by telling her that as often as I could. We talked about how eager we were to start her treatment, and so we could find out what we were actually dealing with as far as the side effects go. We both had no idea how she would feel while recovering from the chemotherapy, nor in the crucial days following the treatment as she tried to recover. Mom talked about how she'd been trying to keep busy by doing normal things like running errands and cleaning up around the house. She emphasized just how good it was to do simple things like going to Walmart to return a dress that did not fit correctly, and spending time out in the world with other people rather than just sitting at home. Having told me about some pleasant things, she then told me about how annoying it was to hear stories from friends and acquaintances about their experiences with cancer. She explained that everyone had a story about someone who had colon cancer, and they either did really well or died quickly. She knew that these people meant well. They were well intentioned, but it still bothered her to talk with them about this subject. Mom wanted to remain as private as possible, preferring not to discuss her cancer with anyone other than her close friends, at least until she had more information about what she was dealing with. Mom also told me that she had gone to the hospital for a CT scan earlier that week, and she was eager to hear the results, and I reassured her that everything would be just fine. The rest of my cousin's birthday went by fast, and I was able to spend some quality time with my family, and I felt like a normal person. It was a rare pleasure to be that way, given everything that was going on, and to this moment, I still cherish that day. A few days later, the time had come, and it was Mom's turn to start chemotherapy. She drove to my house ahead of time so we could go to the hospital together, and our plan was to leave around 7 o'clock in the morning. As it turned out, Mom arrived almost 45 minutes late. I was worried that she might have gone straight to the hospital without me instead of coming to my place, because I couldn't get a hold of her on the phone. When she finally showed up, she explained that she had twice missed my exit off the highway. After getting no sleep the night before, She was not thinking clearly. Mom had been so nervous and scared to start her chemotherapy regimen that she was barely functioning. And despite all that, I was just happy to see her pull into the driveway because I knew that I would be able to take over from there and would make sure that she got to the hospital safe and sound. It was a bit surreal for me, as always, to go back to the hospital as a caregiver and not as a patient, but I was starting to get used to it. As a caregiver, I felt a safe emotional distance from the morbid undercurrents of the hospital, and that allowed me to study the environment and its denizens without such a heavy emotional attachment. Through time, I had become rather familiar with most of the faces at the front desk and a good number of the nursing staff as well. I was more comfortable with each return visit to the hospital. As we waited for Mom's name to be called this day, I took some small joy in seeing each of those staff members' faces again, just as one might each flower in a garden of many varieties. I have always admired the people who work in such a hectic and emotionally draining environment, and I was impressed by the fact that they still seemed to be going strong each time I came back. Even though it's rather obvious that cancer cannot be transmitted, I still somehow felt that the people working there were at risk of being exposed, and I lauded their bravery. Likely, this is due to the fact that as a cancer patient, I felt shame, and in many ways, I felt like a dirty leper. After a short wait, Mom's name was called, and they led her back to a room to draw her blood. I smiled as she walked away, and I returned to thinking about the many faces of the hospital staff. Once I see a face, I never forget it. It's somewhat of a marvelous thing that, as humans, we have the ability to store the memory of so many faces in our minds and have the ability to recall them at a moment's notice. While Mom was having her blood drawn, the nurses continued to emerge from the various entrances to call out patients' names. And perhaps by the fifth or sixth name that was called, I experienced a strange feeling of deja vu. For some reason, when the nurse appeared, I thought she might call out my name, even though I was not a patient that day. The experience of thinking that my name would be called just highlighted the fact that I was still adjusting to my post-chemotherapy life. And in many ways, I was still feeble and incomplete, like someone who needed ongoing medical assistance to stay alive. Recognizing those feelings, I told myself that I should be more patient. And though the process of emotional recovery might take a long time, I should enjoy the progress I had made thus far. It was nice to see Mom emerge from one of the side doors with a confident smile on her face and good energy about her. I've always admired her strength and bravery. With Mom now ready to go, I grabbed my belongings and we went upstairs to meet with her medical oncologist. To calm down Mom, and probably myself as well, I reminded her that this chemotherapy was just a precautionary follow-up, and I told her that the doctors had already removed most of the cancer from her body with surgery. I was giving Mom the best counsel I possibly could, trying to help her stay in a positive mind frame and to think positively as she faced an uncertain road ahead. In this new role as a caregiver, I was proud of my experience of both receiving chemotherapy and recovering from it, and I was just itching to share some of my wisdom. After Mom's vital signs were taken, we endured yet another brief wait, and then my sister joined us for the next appointment. The next chapter, more bad news. As you can tell, more bad news is coming. So we'll talk about that next time. This is My Battles with Cancer, a patient and caregiver's candid memoir. I was a cancer patient and a caregiver. I'm writing about my story in a way, hopefully, that it will help other people. And that's what this is, one chapter at a time on YouTube at Cheds Trading. I'm also the author of Trading Quotes and Trading Wisdom. You can get those on Amazon. I'm Big Cheds on Twitter. Folks, thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.